Hi, welcome back. As you can tell from my posture, I'm a little bit more relaxed in this video because I get to share the good news of the gospel with you. Now, you may be new to our website and you may have been tempted to click on this video before you clicked on the bad news video. That makes sense. I'd probably do the same thing, but I encourage you to go back and watch that bad news video first, because without that understanding, this video really won't make that much sense to you. The good news really won't seem that good until you have a firm grasp of the bad news. So go back and watch that video, but if you've done that already, I commend you, because that was a little bit of an intense video. I was kind of in your face and getting you to think about some really hard, serious things, but I can be a little bit more relaxed with you here because of the good news that I have to share with you. Let's go back to our earthly judge analogy, where we're standing in court, and let's just say that our crimes against society have stacked up to the point where we owe the judge $1 million. Really not the judge, but the state. We owe the state $1 million for our crimes, and we know we can't pay it, and our situation is just hopeless. And if we can't pay the $1 million fine, then we're going to face decades in jail for what we've done. Now imagine a stranger walks in and says to the judge, I want to pay this person's fine. Here's $1 million so that this person can go free. And the judge says, why would you do something like that? And this person says, well, because I love this person and I want to show them this act of kindness so that they don't have to be punished, so that they can go and live their life. Now imagine if you're the person who owed that $1 million, how you would feel if this happened. Can you imagine the elation, the joy, the releasing of this burden that you would feel, that not only do you not have to do any jail time, you get to go free, but you don't have this debt anymore. The debt has been completely paid, completely wiped out, so that it doesn't hang over your head anymore. Can you just imagine how freeing that would be? And can you imagine how that would change your life? Do you think that after that happened, you would go back out and start living a life of crime again and wind up owing another $1 million and wind up back in court? Well, hopefully not. I mean, maybe some people would, but probably most of us, that gift of generosity would actually transform us and just want to make sure that we lived our life now to the fullest, so that we wouldn't make light of that gift or of the gift giver. Well, now let's take this analogy a little bit further, because when we talk about what we owe God, remember from the last video, we don't owe Him $1 million. We owe Him our lives. We owe Him death. The wages of sin is death and eternal separation from Him for all eternity. So we owe God a much more serious fine. Now imagine if we're standing in an earthly court and we're on death row, and a stranger comes in and says, I'm going to take this person's place on death row. I'm going to sit in the electric chair for them, or I'm going to take that lethal injection for them so that they can go free. Now imagine that that person is the judge's son, and the judge says to you, because I love you so much, I'm going to give my son so that you can go free. Can you imagine how mind-boggling that situation would be? I mean, how confused you would be, how unfair that would seem, that here I am, I'm the one deserving of death, I'm the one who deserves to pay the penalty, and yet here is the judge's son, a person I don't even know, a stranger who does not deserve death at all, and yet he is going to go and take the penalty for me so that I can go free. That is what God has done for us. That is the good news of the gospel, that God sent His Son, Jesus Christ. And it wasn't like His Son, Jesus, was, reluctant and said, no, I don't want to go. Please don't make me go. And I don't want to, sacrifice for them. No, He loved us too. He was in on it as well. God and Jesus together in on this plan to set us free by Jesus coming in the flesh to die on a cross in our place, to take the penalty that we owed God upon Himself. 1 Peter 2 in verse 24 says that Jesus bore our sins in his body on the cross. Romans 5, verse 8 says, God demonstrates his own love toward us in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Much more than having now been justified or made right by his blood, we shall be saved from the wrath of God through him. We have been made right or justified by Jesus' death because he paid our fine. He paid what we owed God. And I'll tell you, that should absolutely transform our lives. That's the greatest news in the world, because now that means we don't have to go to hell. That means we are set free from the debt that we owed God. Romans 8 and verse 1 says, there is now no condemnation for those who are in Jesus Christ. In other words, we are no longer condemned according to the law. We can actually be set free. We can actually go and no longer live for sin, but to live for righteousness instead. Interestingly, at the end of 1 Peter 2:24, which I just quoted earlier about him bearing our sins in his body on the cross, it says, so that we might die to sin and live to righteousness, for by his wounds you were healed. Instead of dying as a punishment for our sin and going to hell, we actually die to sin itself. We put sin to death in our life so that sin no longer has power over us, so that the guilt of our consciences having been marred by breaking God's law, that guilt can be completely cleansed, and we no longer have to pay the punishment of sin. And that means our life is completely different. Think about it. Just like we said earlier, we wouldn't go back to a life of crime after somebody paid $1 million for us. How much more then, if somebody died for us in our place, would we go back out and live a life of crime again? No way. We rejoice in God's love. We let God's love, his grace in sending Jesus on the cross, transform our hearts so that now, yes, we may still sin. We're not perfect, but we're not trying to sin anymore. We're no longer living for ourselves, but that we are living for the one who died for us. We love God and we want to serve him. It's no longer, well, we should just serve God because, if we don't, then we're going to go to hell and shame on us and all that. No, it's a different kind of motivation. It's not just a motivation out of fear. It's a motivation out of love and gratitude for what he has done. You get to go free because Jesus paid your fine. Jesus paid my fine. That is the good news of the gospel. And may God bless you and use that good news to transform your life. Not everybody will be transformed by it. Not everybody will be saved. Even though Jesus died to make it possible for everyone to be saved, not everybody will. We're going to talk about how to be saved in the next video. Thank you so much for your kind attention, and may that gospel message transform your heart, bring you to your knees in gratitude, and beg God to know, what can I do to be saved and now be transformed and live for you?